The Centurion Project. Written by the 8th Day of Night. Chapter 42. Making Plans. Part 1. Elias kept his usual frown on his face as the Solar Guards opened the doors to the war room. He needed to make a good first impression for the first official meeting they would undertake for the march. All of the other planning meetings had ended up being fairly worthless, at least for the other generals. Each had dealt with their little gripes, but did little in terms of helping them, save for the ones that Elias already knew on a personal basis. With the conflict of schedules related to training and the day-to-day hecticness of the Canterlot Castle, they hadn't actually met as a unified group. And if what he had heard was true, Princess Cadence still wouldn't join preparations for another few weeks. Still, the meeting would involve all the generals and both of the important princesses. It would be the first meeting where everyone gave their status updates, and it would be the first time where they could start laying the groundwork for the march as a whole. Excited wasn't quite the word Elias was feeling, perhaps energetic. He was ready to lay out his plans and get approval from everyone so that they could begin gathering the resources and start training in a group. His mismatched eyes quickly took stock of the table, locating a trio of empty seats next to Luna and Nightshade. The latter focused on a stack of paperwork before her and ignored his entrance, but Luna smiled brightly at him and patted the seat next to her. Elias gave her a respectful nod and moved across the room with long strides. As he slid into the seat, it didn't escape his notice that the chair was designed for a human user, and he faintly wondered what would have happened if he had chosen a different seat. After a moment of consideration, Elias decided it didn't matter, and he was more than glad to be close to Luna. They had skipped their weekly session to prepare for the meeting, and Elias had found his migraines grew worse when he didn't have a bit of free time to spend with the princess. His current headache eased just slightly as the unicorn leaned in to give him a friendly nudge. He gave her the smallest of grins while hiding the expression behind his information packet. He noticed a faint blush as the alicorn smiled and looked away. Elias straightened in his seat and suppressed his urge to match her smile. Damn, did it feel good to see one of his only friends. He didn't know why Luna inspired butterflies in his stomach, though. Maybe he was just hungry. He had skipped breakfast. As if on cue to his thoughts, Saucy entered the war room with Chaser in tow, with a broad smile on her face.
Ah, good. Every pony is already here. Since it is still early, I thought it would be a nice treat to provide breakfast for every pony. Please, take your fill.
As she and Chaser sat down, a swarm of servants flooded the room, and Elias quickly swiped his prepared materials from the table. He passed them the bookbinder to keep safe, and then the servants were upon them. Placemats were followed quickly by plates. In the center of the table, a buffet of different platters were unveiled, all filled to the brim with steaming piles of food. Elias felt his stomach growl at the sight of a small pile of bacon, and he reached for the entire plate, knowing full well that the meat was destined for his. Only for the pile of meat to fly away in a purple glow as his hands got close. Elias blinked and sat back as he watched the sack of bacon sit down on Luna's plate. The blue unicorn smiled at the unicorn beside her.
Thank you, Silvershine. I think I can gather the rest myself.
The unicorn nodded and departed without a word, and Elias found himself staring at a pile of meat sitting on Luna's plate. She noticed his staring and smiled.
What's the matter, General? Is it not orthodox for ponies to eat meat? But bacon used to be a staple for the equestrian diet. I still quite enjoy partaking in its greasy goodness.
A mare after my own heart. Elias muttered under his breath as Celestia made a face of distaste at Luna, who had eyes only for Elias.
I really wish you wouldn't, sister,
Celestia said.
There had been a great deal of research over the years to indicate that eating meat is extremely unhealthy for ponies.
Luna scoffed and picked up a piece of bacon. Elias felt his eye twitch as he caught an additional whiff of the meat. Jealous didn't describe the wave of the emotion he felt as Luna bit into the meat in two.
I am a 9 immortal alicorn. I can eat as I wish,
Luna replied. Her eyes flicked towards Elias, and he noticed a playful glint in the beautiful green orbs.
Although, bacon is best eaten when shared.
Elias's momentary hope was squashed as she made the servant levitate the plate towards Nightshade.
General, would you care for some bacon? It is as fresh as it can be.
The Thestral curled her muzzle.
Thank you for the offer, Princess, but I haven't tried meat in years. It makes me fat. Mangoes, on the other hoof.
The bacon levitated away as the Thestral reached into the middle of the table and snatched up the fruit basket. Eli's eyes traced the meat as it made its way around the table, stopping at everyone, including his two subordinates, before setting back down before Luna. The Eloquent sighed and picked up another piece.
Ah, well, 'tis a shame. I do so enjoy sharing bacon, but alas, none here wish to join me.
Elias desperately wanted to snatch up the plate, but he could tell that Luna was trying to tease him. He refused to rise to the bait, and he instead took the apple from the fruit bowl that Nightshade was ripping apart. With the everything else being hay-based, he was stuck with fruit or the out-of-reach bacon. Elias suppressed a sigh as he bit into the apple and leaned back in his chair, leaving his plate empty. It took until the fourth bite for Luna to let out a sigh of her own.
Well played, General. Calling my bluff. Here, the bacon is actually yours. I have no taste for meat.
She passed the entire plate to Elias, who felt himself flush red as the entire table watched the exchange. He blinked owlishly as he stared at the still steaming stack of meat, then looked to Luna.
Then, what did you eat?
He asked, taking the plate from her hoof, and a wink to begin serving herself some hay cakes.
A vegetarian version. Hay-based, of course. I had the chefs label them subtly so I could tell at a glance, but you didn't rise to my bait.
Elias smiled lightly and reached a hand out to rub the space between her wings. Her soft fur parted easily for his fingers, and he scratched softly right at the base of her wings, massaging her back with a gentle touch that eased her tense muscles. The mare melted in his fingers as he spoke.
Ah, you underestimated my silence on personal issues. You should know me by now, princess. I don't talk about anything.
She shuddered as he scratched at the base of her wings, and she smiled brightly at him.
Indeed, General. Please, eat. We ordered the bacon just for you.
Elias smiled at her again, then blinked as he realized that they were not in private. A glance to the greater surroundings found that the table was staring at them in silence. Elias flushed red, and his hand dropped from behind her back. Elias sat up in his chair, then hunched over his food, trying desperately to find his composure.
It's very good,
he commented softly as he bit into the first piece.
I am glad,
Luna replied, equally flushed. Elias noticed the deafening silence continue for a few moments after he began eating, but gradually the other generals set about talking about social nothings, though Elias received a wink from Nightshade and a glare from Chaser and Celestia. Elias recognized quickly that he had made some kind of pony cultural mistake, so he looked over to Luna to apologize, only to find her smiling brightly at him. Elias cocked an eyebrow.
Are you alright, princess?
She nodded.
Better with you beside me, General,
she responded.
I know you are busy, but could you have your auditor schedule our next friendship appointment? I quite missed our conversation this week.
Elias nodded, and he glanced to his left to find Bookbinder already writing the note down in her notebook. His eyes flicked back to Luna, and he smiled.
I'll make sure you're informed when I have free time.
Luna nodded, and her head lowered as she focused on her breakfast. Elias smiled inwardly, and he went back at his bacon and apple breakfast. His mind settled with the knowledge that he hadn't managed to drive away the mare who was becoming his best friend. With the knowledge that all was well in his personal life, Elias resumed his normal stoicism and began looking around the table, analyzing everyone around it. Nightflash's mind was on fire. He knew what rubbing between the wings meant, and he was fairly sure that every pony at the table knew. To do something so romantic in public was unheard of for Elias, and Nightflash couldn't have been prouder of his boy. Attempting courtship with a princess was a bold move, and from the looks Luna was giving him, Nightflash could tell that the feeling was mutual. Nightflash pulled out a small piece of paper and a pencil from beneath his armor, and he scribbled a quick note between bites of his hay cakes. He smoothly passed it to Bookbinder under the table. He managed to find another bite before the note was returned, and Nightflash felt even happier as he gazed at his soon-to-be wife. She hadn't even looked at the note as she wrote it, yet it was in perfect hoof writing as he unfolded it.
I think you're right that Elias loves Luna, but he doesn't know that was a sign of romantic affection. Don't tell him. Let him figure it out. He'll get too nervous if we start pointing out every little thing about ponies he gets wrong.
Nightflash frowned at that, but he understood the logic. When the glance up to Elias found the human staring at Luna again, but this time there was no bacon to draw his eyes. Nightflash knew that look. It was the same one he and Bookbinder shared. And if the blush on Luna's cheeks was any indication, she felt Elias's loving gaze on her. Nightflash sighed and scribbled another reply on the note. Stupid March. I can't wait for it to be over. We are going to have so much fun. Nightflash passed the note back to Bookbinder and settled into his food. Eat now, talk about Elias's love life later. Nightshade grinned at Luna from across the table. She could tell the Alicorn knew she had eyes on her, but she refused to meet Nightshade's gaze, and that only made the Thestral grin wider. Chaser leaned over and whispered in her ear. What are you staring at, Shade? He asked quietly. Was it the moves Bright was pulling on Princess Luna? Nightshade heard a touch of anger in his voice, so she kicked the Pegasus under the table.
Don't mess it up.
She hissed in reply.
Princess Luna's personal relationship with Elias is none of your bucking business, so leave it be. You don't ever get to talk about it unless you support her.
Chaser blinked stupidly at her.
What do you mean, support her?
He whispered.
Bright's the one making the moves.
Nightshade gave him a forced smile.
Yeah, and you're not gonna say a thing, because Princess Luna's been making moves too. This is the most public either of them have been, so you let them be. She wants him and he clearly wants her, so you have no part in it. Got it?
Chaser frowned, then looked towards Luna to find her staring longingly at Elias. The human was working away at his plate of meat, but Luna was watching him like he was singing her favorite song. Chaser could see the absolute love in her eyes, and he could see the frequent glances her way that indicated he was thinking in a similar vein. Bright really did. Chaser sighed and started picking up at his food again.
Fine. I won't do anything. You just better not buck it up.
Nightshade matched his sigh.
I think we both know them well enough to know that the only thing that's going to happen is that they're going to buck it up.
Celestia felt something was going on, but for the life of her she couldn't tell what it was. The issue was Elias. The human was positively unreadable. The physical signs on his body told a tale of exhaustion and sleep deprivation, an understandable occurrence given the health reports that Steel Scalpel had on the man. But his body posture, the man looked energized. Was it the interaction he had with Luna? That had certainly drawn the attention of everyone else at the table. Celestia frowned as she glanced at her sister, who was watching Elias eat. She had mentioned that they had skipped their usual friendship session. Perhaps Luna just missed her friend. She still hadn't formed a very large friend group, and Elias had become one of her closest confidants. Perhaps that was it. Luna missed one of her best friends, and with the opportunity to interact, they were behaving as friends did. A minor prank, some smiling, some friendly gestures. Elias likely had no significance of the between the wing gesture, and he was just imitating behavior he saw others performing. Celestia sat up in her seat and smiled softly at her meal. That was good news then. Elias was slowly becoming enveloped by pony culture, and in time, she saw him losing his past traumas as the power of friendship cured his ailments. If Luna gained a close friend in the process, who was she to interfere? It was a minor social faux pas, and one that Luna would no doubt notify Elias of when they were in private. Celestia resisted the urge to clap her hands together in giddy excitement. Now she knew what Twilight felt when she solved a friendship problem. It was exhilarating, and it all was happening before her. A few more months, and all would be well. She could feel it. Everfree greatly enjoyed the hay cakes. They were in fact his favorite part of any breakfast, and he ate them as he had been taught, with dignity and grace. In truth, however, he could have likely just chowed down like he wanted to and no pony would have been wiser. They were hiding it, but he could tell that all the eyes were on General Bright and Princess Luna. Rubbing between the wings was something only mates did, and while he knew the human was uneducated on pony cultures, he had to know there was some significance to his action. Everfree glanced up at Luna, looking for any signs of distress. He found none, and if he was reading her royal mask correctly, she was quite pleased. Everfree shifted in his seat and focused back on his hay cakes. Good for her. It wasn't an ideal matchup, but General Bright was of some station, and he had more than sacrificed life and limb for the sake of his princess. But in truth, Everfree believed the pair would do well together. Some of the nobles, likely some at the table he was eating at, would take issue with the unlikely matchup. But Luna was a princess, and General Bright seemed a stern sort, They could weather any criticism that came their way with ease. With the knowledge that all was well between the pair, Everfree reached out and snagged the bottle syrup, ready to drown his delicious hay cakes in sweet goodness. I love when we do small perspective switches just so we can see what's going on behind people's minds. It's always interesting, especially with Nightshade and Chaser. If you didn't notice, but Chaser calls Nightshade Shade, and I absolutely love that. It's just a small indication that they're a lot more closer than everybody else when they're mentioned in like cute little nicknames like that. It's just so cute. What else is cute, however, and lovable are my wonderful Patreons. Thank you, my tier 1s, Chase the Master, Jason, Squall Feather, Luna Gaze, 8th Day of Night, Starlight Blaze, Hyperlink, Night and Game, Rain Flicker, Redeemer of Dark and Dreamless Portal. My tier 2s, Captain Blue Shadow, The Animated Ghost, HKH4AK Texture, Sword Brother Mordred, Danish Dash, Nocturne, Jujumex 2000, Papa Lennon, and Can Panzer. And of course a large thank you to my tier 3s, Dark Guardian, Maverick, and Silent Titan. I appreciate you guys' support so much and it means a ton to me. That aside, however, this has been Firehearth. Have a wonderful day.